Testing. 1, 2, 3, there I am. Hey, Numbers chapter 22. We are continuing our study through the book of Numbers, and we come to one of my favorite sections in all of the Bible. It's not my favorite, but it definitely is one of my favorite. I mean, it's definitely top 10. Okay, it might even be top 5. Because we come to this section today, chapter 22, and then it will continue on into 23 and 24. This story of this guy named Balaam. And this man is crazy. It's crazy. And we'll see that today right from the beginning. As we get down toward the bottom of our, or the end of our chapter, we will see that today. But Numbers chapter 22, hopefully you are there and you're ready to go. Let me ask you a question. What would you do for $10 million? $10 million. There was a poll conducted, this is several years back, but they conducted a poll. They polled a bunch of Americans. What would you do for $10 million? 25% would abandon their entire family. 25%, another 25%, would abandon their church. Too many people trying to borrow money, probably. 23%, actually I'm not going to read that one because that's nasty. 16% would give up their American citizenship. Okay. You know, with that much money, you could probably just buy it back from some politician. 16% would leave their spouses. 10% would withhold testimony and let a murderer go free. 7% said that they would kill a stranger for $10 million. It's creepy. And 3% would put their children up for adoption for $10 million. Incredible. Incredible. Now, you and I understand that we are never going to have $10 million offered to us, you know, unless maybe you're playing the lotto one of these days and, you know, you hit the jackpot or whatever and you have all that money. And as we know, it's funny, we know that money changes people. And we know, and I don't want you to raise your hands on this one and say, yeah, you're right, I agree. But we know that money can even change us, if we're being honest. Not all of us, but some of us. Some of us are willing to do things for money that we wouldn't normally do. It can change people. And certainly $10 million on the table could certainly change some people. Well, Balaam, this man Balaam, had a problem. Now, it's not going to be super obvious as we're reading through this, but we do know that he had a problem with money, and we'll talk about that some more as we get into our study. But let me break this up for you real quickly. Let's see if we can get this turned on and break this up for you. Is it working? There it is, hopefully. I think that's me. Might be the girls back there. Numbers chapter 22 has 4 main divisions. It's a long chapter, but we'll move through it. This man named Balak. You go, I thought you said his name was Balaam. It is. There's a Balaam. There's also a Balak. And we're going to see Balak's appeal. And then we will see Balaam's answer to that appeal. And then we will see that Balaam has an adversary, somebody standing against him. It's actually quite hilarious, and that's one of my favorite portions of this entire section. And then Balak and Balaam finally meet one another. But we'll get right into the first section here, which is Balak's appeal. And the first thing that we're going to see is that Balak's appeal was motivated by fear. By fear, not by money, but by fear, although there may have been some motivation, some monetary motivation behind it, that we don't know for sure. But look at verse 1. Then the children of Israel moved. We know that the children of Israel, through this entire story, they're on a journey. They're out in the wilderness. So they're on the move once again. The last time we were together, you and I found out that they had actually overtaken or overcome some different people groups. Some people came out to attack them, and the Lord gave them victory. And so they're traveling through. Some are perhaps starting to settle in some of the surrounding cities, but they're traveling here. They moved in verse 1, and they camped in the plains of Moab. They're going to be spending some time here on the side of the Jordan across from Jericho. We've all heard of that, right? Jericho, Joshua and Jericho. Okay, eventually we'll get there. Verse 2. Now Balak, there he is, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people. There it is. They're motivated by fear. Because they were many, there's potentially millions out there, although you may recall that God is in the process, or has been in the process now, of eliminating some of that older generation. Remember, many of them were dying off, but still it's large numbers, okay? And they were exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many, and Moab was sick with dread. Sick with dread. You ever been sick with dread? You ever been on, maybe some roller coaster or something? I've seen that. I've not been on it. I'm not crazy about roller coasters. I get on them, but I'm not crazy about them. But many of you have probably seen that roller coaster. Saw a video of it on the top of one of those skyscrapers in Vegas. And you do the whole roller coaster thing, and then at one point it just takes you straight off the edge of the building, and everybody's just kind of hanging off there, and then they back it up and continue on with the ride. That is so ungodly. I don't know why anybody would do that. Some of you are probably thinking, no, I would totally do it. I would love to go do that. I would be sick with dread in that instance. Some of you may have been sick with dread over other things, scary things. These people are out of their minds afraid. And so Moab, it says in verse 3, was sick with dread because of the children of Israel. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, okay, that area, now this company, talking about the Israelites, now this company will lick up everything around us, as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. Now, this is not so hard for some of us to understand, not so far-fetched. We right now, and I'm not trying to get into political matters and tell you who to vote for and all that kind of stuff, but right now we've got an open border here in the United States. Our southern border is wide open, and there are people coming through by the thousands. And you may have seen or heard about some of the stories, governors who are putting these immigrants on buses and shipping them off to some other state to try and, hey, let's get them to some other states. And there's kind of this, sadly, kind of this fight over these people as if they were, political pawns or something. It is quite sad. But there are many in the United States who are sick with dread over that. Oh man, these people are coming, they're going to take up all of our resources. And obviously it's true that more people means less resources, things diminish. I mean, it's just common sense. But you might be able to understand a little bit about what these people were feeling. Like, oh my gosh, there's just millions of people coming through. They're going to just take everything. And notice the way that they use, the language that they use. They're going to lick up everything around us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. So they're seeing these people coming through and saying, hey, they're just going to take all of our resources. And, you think about the Moabites, these were wicked people. They really were. However, they still had families, kids, people that needed to be fed. So they're looking at this group and thinking, my goodness, they're going to come through and take from us. Are we going to survive this thing? And so they are sick with dread. And obviously they're motivated by fear here. And we're told in verse 4, at the very end, Balak, the son of Zippor, was the king of the Moabites at that time. So you've got the Moabites sick with fear, and they're talking to their leader and saying, Balak, what are you going to do about this? So what does he do? Now, still being motivated by fear, there is a message sent to Balaam. Balaam. We're introduced to Balaam now. Then he sent messengers to Balaam. Now, who is Balaam? He tells us the son of Beor at Pethor. That's where he was. His father's name was Beor. He was at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the sons of his people. And he sent this message to call him, saying, here's what he says, look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth. There's a lot of them out there. But they're not covering the face of the earth. Okay? But what happens when we're motivated by fear, right? Whatever the situation is exaggerated in our mind. Now, I'm not downplaying this. There are potentially millions of people out here coming into their land, or at least near their land. and they're seeing like, oh my goodness, there's a sea of them. They're everywhere. And so he says to Balaam in this message that, listen, they're cover the face of the earth at the end of verse 5 and are settling next to me. They're my neighbors. Therefore, please come at once. I mean, what is Balaam? Is he like this hitman? Like, isn't that kind of funny? There are millions of people out here. In fact, they're covering the face of the earth. And Balaam, I need you to come and handle the job. Is he loaded with ammunition? What is it about this Balaam? Well, we'll find out as we go through here, obviously. But he's calling on Balaam, motivated by fear. And he says in verse 6, therefore, please come at once, curse this people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Can't you curse the people yourself? And what's going on here? Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. Okay, so we're getting some little indicators here. This man Balaam is called upon, and Balaam evidently has some kind of power. When he blesses people, people are blessed. But when he curses people, they're cursed. So what kind of guy is this? What's going on? Well, you'll notice this, that in this message, in verse 7, that there is this diviner's fee included here. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed, so the leaders, with the diviner's fee in their hand. And they came to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak. So whoever this man Balaam is, he's able to, or at least the people believe that he can bless people or curse people and give them some kind of, give them special power. Evidently, if you've got the right amount of money. So Balak, the elders, the leaders of Moab and Midian, they send in this message, they send money. So they're attempting to buy off this man Balaam. Okay, let's find out in the second main division what Balaam's answer is. Verse 8, and he said to them, lodge here tonight. Okay, so immediately we think, oh, sounds like he's at least considering, because he starts by saying lodge here tonight. So he doesn't immediately slam the door in their face. Get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. What's wrong with you? Who do you think I am? He says, stay here tonight. And I will bring back word to you. And look at the next thing he says. This is puzzling. I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. Now, he says, listen, the Lord, stay here, and we're going to see if maybe the Lord answers and says something about this matter. So whoever this man Balaam is, he has at least, we understand, some understanding or some sense of God. He has some kind of relationship with God, because he says, listen, let's just see what the Lord wants to do. Now, this doesn't sound bad to me yet. This man Balaam, he didn't immediately reject them and kick them out. But at the same time, he's saying, you know what? I don't really know what God wants to do. So why don't you just sit tight, stay here, and let's find out. Maybe God wants to do something in this situation. And sometimes we can see a situation and think there's no way that God's going to be into that. And we've got to be careful, because some things are overtly sinful, and they say, they're in the Bible, it names it as sin. And so we can be sure that God's not going to use sinful practices. He's not going to violate his own word, so we can be sure of that. But there are other times where in our minds we think, well, there's no way that God can't possibly be into that. He can't possibly have anything to do with that. And yet, as we've found, God is so often, he exists outside of the box that we try to keep him in. God only likes, these kinds of haircuts and these kinds of clothes and this kind of music and, these kinds of places and, whatever our minds or our thoughts might be. Oftentimes we find that God breaks those barriers. He breaks those expectations that we have of him, and he does something that we never thought he would do. So I like this about Balaam, that, let's just see what maybe God wants to do something about this, okay? You thought I would never drink my water. Then God came to Balaam and said, so God comes to visit Balaam. Then, in verse 9, then God came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? Now, does God not know who they are? God absolutely knows who they are. Okay? But he's in this discussion with Balak or Balaam and wanting to, let's see what Balaam has to say. So he says, who are these men with you? So in verse 10, Balaam said to God. So now we understand a little bit more, or a lot more about Balaam. He's got a relationship with God. Okay? Now, it seems to be the same type of relationship that Moses has. Remember God said about Moses? God said, he said, Moses and I were friends. We talk face to face like one man talks to another. We talk like friends. And so it would appear to us that this man Balaam, he says, hey, let's just wait and see what God wants to say. God comes and visits Balaam, then God speaks to him. So Balaam said to God in verse 10, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent to me, saying, look, a people has come out of Egypt, they cover the face of the earth. Come now, curse them for me, perhaps I shall be able to overpower them and drive them out. Well, in verse 10, God's got something to say about this, and it is denial. And God said to Balaam in verse 12, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Pretty straightforward, right? God makes it real clear right at the beginning. These are a special people, and you are not allowed to go and curse them. In fact, he says, do not even go with these people. The matter's done. There's nothing more to be said. Verse 13. So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to give me permission to go with you. Great response. And the princes of Moab rose and went back to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Then Balak again sent princes, more numerous and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam and said to him, thus says Balak the son of Zippor, please let nothing hinder you from coming to me. So we see that Balak and these princes and the Moabites, that they are, what's it called when they don't give up? Somebody help me out. What was that? Persistent. Thank you very much. They are persistent. Okay? Persistent. And so in verse 17, for I will certainly, here's what Balak says. This is the second message, the other part of the message. For I will certainly honor you greatly. You hear that? I will certainly honor you greatly. Now, maybe he means, listen, we'll throw you a parade. Maybe that's what he means. Okay? Maybe he means we will erect a statue of you in front of the king's house, or in the center of the city, or at the biggest soccer arena in town. We will erect a big gold statue of you, Balaam. We don't know exactly what that means, but it's. I'm kind of hearing this little hint of, listen, we'll pay you whatever you want. Okay. He goes on to say in verse 17, I will do whatever you say to me. Whatever you say. Therefore, please come. Curse this people for me. So now this king, you can hear his desperation, right? I'll honor you greatly, and I will do whatever you say. Name it. Name the price. This king obviously would have resources, endless resources at his disposal. And he is willing, at least at this point, sounds to us like he's willing to empty the bank accounts and, come on over and, curse these people for me, and I'll give you whatever you want. You want money? You want fame? You want women? What is it that you want? I'll give it to you. Okay? See, it's the ancient, age-old offer from the world, Oh, come on. Stop following Jesus, man. Stop with all that Christianity stuff. Because look how beautiful this person is over here, this guy or this girl. And look, if you just lower your standards, if you just give up that Christianity, Jesus, I need to be with a Christian person. Give that up and look how beautiful. Look what we have to offer you. Satan's got all kinds of things that he can offer. There is a sense in which Satan has all the resources within his disposal, and he can give them. He is the ruler of this world, the Bible tells us, right now, only because God's allowing him to be. But there is that offer all of the time. Like, you come with me, and we'll give you this. And people won't just say it, but here's what they mean. Listen, if you will just sell out, if you'll just lower your standards, come over here and do this thing, look what you're going to get. Look at the prize. So, same thing going on here with this man, Balak and Balaam, this offer. I'll give you anything that you can imagine. I mean, think about that. Just anything that you can imagine. And in your minds right now, again, without saying it out loud, I want you to ask yourself right now, what if that offer was made to me? Come and do this thing. Come and violate your conscience. Come and violate your standards, and I'll give you anything you want. You should think about that. Like, how would I respond to that? Would I hold fast? Would I stand true? Would I say no way? I'm not doing that. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what amount of money you give me. How would you respond to that? And so this offer is given to Balaam. And in verse 17, or rather verse 18, then Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, though Balak were to give to me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now, I love that response, and I hope that it's genuine, and I really don't know if it is or not. I wonder if he's just kind of throwing that out there, like, please, I couldn't come, even if he gave me a house filled with gold and silver, maybe? There's no way I can't even, even if he offered, I don't know. I'm hoping that it's genuine. It seems to be genuine here. He says, listen, I cannot go against the word of the Lord. So verse 19, now therefore, he tells him, please, you also stay here tonight, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me. Okay? Is there really any reason for them to stay? God already said don't go with them. I mean, seems like God spoke already. Just get out of there. Maybe Balaam's flirting with the possibility. Or maybe he's just kind of a knucklehead. Maybe he's thinking, I don't know. Well, let's continue to read here. Verse 20, and God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call you, rise and go with them. But only the word which I speak to you, that you shall do. Verse 21, so Balaam rose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. Okay. Well, this takes us right in, verse 22, into our next section, which is Balaam's adversary. Now, the very next verse says something strange. Then God's anger was aroused because he went. Okay. I don't know if that sounds strange to you or not. It's like, well, wait a minute. Didn't God just say, okay, you can go, but only say what I'm telling you to say? In fact, it's not what God said. Let's look at verse 21 again before we get into any points here. It says in verse 20, and God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call you, it's conditional. If they come to call you, rise and go with them. Now, I may be wrong here, and I'm not, obviously I can't be 1,000% sure, but maybe there was another invitation in between verse 21 and 22, or rather between verse 20 and 21, but it's not written here. We're not told that. They asked him one more time. They're spending the night. He says, just stay the night, and I'll consult the Lord again, and we'll see what happens. And the Lord seems to make this conditional. If they invite you again, then get up and go with them. So when we get to verse 22, we find out that God's anger was aroused because he went. And we go, wait a minute. I thought God said he could go. Now, again, maybe there was another invitation in the morning. Hey, Balaam, you sure? We're getting ready to go. We got all this money. You know, maybe they had a cart full of money or something. And hey, we're getting ready to go. Shiny gold coins over here. Eye catchers. You sure you don't want this? And maybe he said, okay, well, they gave me the invitation. God told me to go if they gave an invitation, so I'm going. But that's not written for us. As far as we know, as far as we can tell, he gets up on his own in the morning, saddles his donkey, and he's ready to go. And so in verse 22, we find out that Balaam has an adversary, somebody standing against him. It's going to become very clear who it is right now in just a moment. Then God's anger was aroused because he went. And the angel of the Lord, it's very possible that this is a pre-incarnate sighting or appearance of Jesus in the Old Testament, because he's not an angel of the Lord, but the angel of the Lord. And so it seems to differentiate there. But regardless, this is the angel from the Lord, took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. And he was riding on his donkey, not the angel, that's Balaam. And he's riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. I love this story. Now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. So Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back onto the road. Hit that donkey. Get back on the road. Verse 24. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards, with a wall on this side and a wall on that side. Small little passageway. Balaam's making his way with his donkey, going through, cruising through, and checking out the vineyards, and there's a wall over here. And so it says in verse 25, and when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed herself against the wall, like we got to stop, and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. So Balaam's anger was aroused, and he struck the donkey with his staff. That's 3 times hit this donkey. All of the animal lovers in here, oh, poor donkey. But many of us would be angry also. Ready to, I'm going to choke you. What are you doing? You crushed my foot. And now the donkey falls down completely. Because the donkey can see the angel, Balaam cannot. What? So, not only does he have an adversary who is the angel of the Lord, but now in verse 28 we find out that there is this argument happening with the donkey. Verse 28, then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey. Now you go, come, please. God cannot open, come on. Seriously? That is what is so wild, so special, so miraculous about this story. Donkeys do not normally talk, okay, just in case. If donkeys talk to you, please stay after. I'd like to talk with you for a few minutes, okay? God miraculously opens the mouth of the donkey. And she said to Balaam, what have I done to you? Now, I've got 3 dogs at home. I'm not crazy about any of them. Okay, I like dogs, but it's just a special situation at my house. And sometimes I will, look at those dogs. They'll be I'll go outside and they'll be standing there, and I'll, because it's kind of weird and crazy. But I think everybody talks to their animals, don't they? Yeah, please. Yeah. Okay, so sometimes I'll walk out and I'll just look at the dogs and I'll go, "What are you looking at?" Because they come, they're like looking, they don't like me, but they're looking at me like, hey, does he have any food in his hands, And I'll just look at the dogs. I'll be by myself, and I'll just be like, what are you looking at? Go away. And I'm so afraid that one of these days the dog's just going to go, I'm looking at you. Give me something to eat. I'm out of here, Open the side gate, let him run or something. Get out of here, I'm so terrified that one of these days God's just going to teach me a lesson like, that's what you get. He's going to make the dogs talk to me. So God opens the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey says, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And listen, verse 29 is one of the craziest verses in the entire Bible. One of the absolute craziest verses in the Bible. Because it says this in verse 29. And Balaam said to the donkey. Now, at this point, we do not know all that's going on in Balaam's mind. And in case you don't know, you haven't figured it out, I'm sure you have, but we're going to find out that Balaam is in it for the money. Okay? But at this point, whatever is driving Balaam, now maybe it's not such a big deal. Maybe Balaam has seen God perform these kinds of miracles before. He's got some kind of relationship with God. We're not entirely sure what kind of relationship is this or what's going on, but we know that God talks to him. So maybe for him, maybe it's not that big a deal. But to read these words that the donkey talks to him, which believe it or not, is not such a big deal. Because God, God in flesh, Jesus, what did he do? He raised people from the dead. He gave sight to the blind. He gave hearing to the deaf. He healed people. He did miraculous things, incredible things. But here in verse 29, to read these words, Balaam said to the donkey, for me, that's an even bigger deal than the donkey talking to Balaam. God can make a donkey talk? Sure. I do not doubt that he can do that. I've never seen that happen, but I do not doubt that he can make that happen. As far as I know, this is the only occurrence of this ever happening. It's not anywhere else in the Bible. But the fact that Balaam talks to the donkey, that Balaam didn't jump off of that donkey and run for his life, leave his 2 servants there, and I don't know. It's incredible to me. Balaam said to the donkey, because you have abused me. You've abused me. Can you imagine? Call the police. Take my donkey away. Why? It's abusing me. Okay? Because you have abused me. I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you. So the donkey said to Balaam. Conversation continues. The donkey says, am I not your donkey on which you have ridden ever since I became yours to this day? Was I ever disposed to do this to you? And Balaam answers him again, well, no. So, no, you're right. I haven't seen you do this before. So they're having this conversation, this argument going on. And the donkey's hilarious because the donkey's like, hey, I've been faithful to you. Why are you beating me? Stop hitting me. Something different is going on here. And in verse 31, then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes. It is bad. It is bad when you cannot notice the Lord, but your animals can. When you don't recognize, okay, God's doing something special here. And I don't know, I've got 3 dogs at home. I've always had dogs ever since I was little. It's a guy. I'm a guy. You got to have a dog, right? Maybe you guys don't have dogs, but it's kind of like, well, I'm a guy. I got to have a dog. But I've always had dogs. And sometimes, those of you that have animals of any kind, probably, you will know that there are sometimes when animals, they just do things. And right now we've got a dog. She's just a year old. She's a Doberman. And she will just start barking. Now, you go, well, dogs bark. I know. But she'll just get up and start barking. The other 2 are not barking. She just gets up and starts barking. And then I'm looking outside, what's going on? Is somebody we know what's going on? And I don't see anything. And I'm looking at her, and she's just standing there. She'll bark, and then she'll turn over here, and then she'll turn around. It's like, is she 101 Dalmatians, right? Remember the bark chain? Remember that? You guys never seen that before? Poor children. Never seen that. You've seen that before, right? Yeah? Okay. There's a bar chain, all this. So I'm like, oh, I'm listening, like, oh man, maybe the Dalmatians are coming through or whatever. I don't know. But it's like, what's going on? But then sometimes it kind of crosses my mind, like, I wonder if she sees something that I don't see. You know, and I'm telling her, hey, shut up out there, you know, whatever. But I wonder. You know, anyway, I've gone too far with that. So, verse 31, so he opens Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you, because your way is perverse before me. Bang, there it is, key verse. We go, I don't understand, like, didn't God give him permission to go, or what's really going on here? Now we understand that something is going on, and it's not just outward. Something is happening in Balaam's heart here. There's a heart condition. Balaam's heart is perverted. Now, this most likely is, you know, we use the word pervert or perverted, you know, nowadays, and it's usually somebody they're sexually perverted. And there may be some of that, but I do not think that that's the indication here. I think it has to do with money. Perverse, to be perverse here, he says again, verse 32, because your way is perverse before me. See, because your way is perverse before me. The word perverse actually means crooked. And when we use it today, like, oh, that guy's a pervy or whatever, that means that their mind is crooked and it's bent in a sexual way. But however, the word perverse is not exclusively speaking of sexual things. Perverse means that his mind is crooked. It's bent. We know a lot of people like that, right? We know a lot of people like that. Their mind is crooked. And so he's saying here, your way, the way that you're going about this, Balaam, is crooked. In that phrase, your way is perverse, we understand here that he's not going about this the way that God wants him to go about it. He's not going in God's way. He's going in his own way. So now we understand. It may be that God gave him permission. Hey, listen, if they invite you, go ahead and go. Maybe the next morning they did invite him, and he said, okay, this is what God said, so I'm going. However, in the going, something happened. Maybe it was the thought of $10 million. What would I do for that? Who would I leave, or who would I hurt? What would I do for $10 million? Something happened in the heart of Balaam. And now his heart, where we find out, is perverse. And so in verse 33, the donkey saw me. The angel's talking here. The donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely I would also have killed you by now and let her live. Life-saving donkey. If that donkey hadn't stopped, the angel would have killed Balaam. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord in verse 34, I have sinned, for I did not know you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displeases you, I will turn back. I like that response. I messed up. You want me to go back? I'll go back. Now let's see what happens from this point. Verse 35. Then the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with the men. So that's clear. He's given him permission now. Given him direction. Go with the men. But only the word that I speak to you, that you shall speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. Okay? He's got specific instructions. Go with the men, but only say what I want you to say. And then we move into our third main division here. Balak and Balaam meet. I'm sorry. Is this the fourth? The fourth, huh? Yes, right? Is that correct? Okay, the fourth main division. Sorry about that. Let me find my place again. Balak and Balaam meet. Verse 36. Now Balak heard that Balaam was coming, He went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the border at the Arnon, the boundary of the territory. And in verses 37, really in verses 38 and 39, verse 37 and 38, we have this misunderstanding between the two. Then Balak said to Balaam, did I not earnestly send to you, calling for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you? What's the problem? Why are you disrespecting me like this? And Balaam said to Balak, look, I have come to you. It's almost like, what are you crying about? I'm here. Now have I any power at all to say anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that I must speak. Now, we will not see it today, but that is exactly what's going to happen. I'll give you the real quick version, and we're going to get into this in the next 2 chapters. But what happens is Balaam actually goes out. He gets bought off. He goes out to go and speak curses over the people. And every time he opens his mouth, the Lord messes it up. And as he's going out there to speak curses, God speaks through him and pronounces blessings on the people. We'll get that in detail in the next couple of chapters. And so it says here in verse 39, so Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath Huzoth. Then Balak offered oxen and sheep, and he sent some to Balaam and to the princes who were with him. He's taking care of his guests. Verse 41, so it was the next day that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal. Get used to that name, Baal, and get used to that phrase, the high places. Because they would go and worship their idols in high places, up on the mountains. The idea is let me get as close as I can, to my idol, to my God. And they would set up these idols, and so you would, as you were traveling, you would see, you might see altars in the hills, in the mountains. You go like, what is that? Oh, that's an altar to Baal. Somebody goes up there. It might be a family altar. They travel up there into the mountains, and they go and they offer an animal on the altar to Baal. They would do that with all of the different gods. I believe that's what is referenced in at the beginning of Psalm 121, when David says, I look to the hills, and then he asks himself a question, where does my help come from? I believe that David, as he's walking into Jerusalem, is looking around, and he sees the hills filled with altars, and he goes, I can see the hills like they're filled with altars to all these other gods, but where does my help come from? And then he answers his own question. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. It's not these earthly altars in the mountains, please. He says it's the Lord. Anyhow, I digress. Let's get back to this. Let's finish up. Verse 41. So it was the next day that he takes him up there to the high places of Baal, that from there he might observe the extent of the people. So he goes up there to see, let me see all of these people that you're telling me about. Now, in 2 Peter chapter 2, you don't even have to turn. Taking care of you. See? In 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 15 and 16, it says this. Peter wrote, they have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of who? Oh, all one of you. Very good. All right. They have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of who? Balaam. Yeah, there's a few more of you, okay? The way of Balaam, the son of Beor. So we're talking about, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But he was rebuked for his iniquity, a dumb donkey, speaking with a man's voice, restrained the madness of the prophet. Now, this is not the only reference to Balaam. He's actually mentioned several times, lots of times throughout the Bible. We'll hear about him again in Deuteronomy when we get to the book of Deuteronomy in like 5 years, and then we'll hear about him again in Joshua. We'll talk about him in recounting the history. We'll hear about him in Nehemiah, great book. We'll never get there. You'll be long gone and married by the time we do that. But Nehemiah, and he's mentioned in other places in the New Testament. He was mentioned all the way into the book of Revelation. And Balaam is always associated with greediness, with doing something illicit in order to make money, always. And here he is again. And we read, what a fool, because it says in verse 16, but he was rebuked for his iniquity, a dumb donkey, speaking with a man's voice. the foolishness of Balaam. To do things, for some kind of gain that you know what, I never imagined myself doing this. And I mean, that's been the story for ages and ages and ages. I never envisioned myself ever going this far. What got you there? The offer of money or the offer of fame. How many celebrities over the ages have sold out their own souls in order to get their 15 minutes of fame? I was talking about this with somebody the other day, how quickly we forget entertainers, our favorite entertainer. I mean, you think about it. Think about maybe just a few years ago, and you had a favorite band or musician, some singer or somebody, and they were just like, oh man, this is the greatest, and you bought all of their merchandise or all of their music, and you just thought these are the greatest people, the greatest entertainers in the world. These are the greatest entertainers that the world will ever know. And your mom or your dad, dad come in and you're like, what kind of garbage is that you're listening to? This is the greatest band in the world, Dad. You don't even understand. They're way better than the Beatles and Elvis and whoever else you listen to. And you just think, and then now, maybe now, 2, 3 years later, 4 years later, you go, I can't believe I listened to that junk. And that just happens all of the time. These people will sell their souls for 15 minutes of fame, and they're just a flash in the pan. So one-hit wonder. They come, they get a little bit of fame, and then boom, they're gone. Done. You ever heard of Milli Vanilli? Yeah. One person. 2 people. Right? It's like, Milli Vanilli, who's that? Exactly. They were singers, and they were absolute frauds. Absolute frauds. It's a hilarious story, and but they're absolute frauds. And we could just go on and name all kinds of people. You go like, who is that? They had a #1 hit radio. I mean, #1 hit on the radio. And it's like, what is the radio? But it's like, you just, they come and they're gone. But people will do things for gain, whether it's monetary gain or fame, notoriety, whatever it is. What is the lesson for you and I? It's obvious. It's a simple one, but it's obvious. That we want to have a relationship with God that is unbreakable, that is unpenetratable. The greed cannot penetrate it. Where we have a commitment to God that's solid, that's firm, where we say, no, I am not doing that because I've got a relationship with God. And I do not care what you offer me. What amount it might be, how cute he might be or how pretty she might be, how famous it might get me, how many followers I might gain. I'm not doing that. I'm not selling out like that. That's the goal. That's the goal. And God obviously wants that kind of commitment from us. And he makes that available. He makes himself available. What we want to do is not go the way of Balaam. Not go the way of Balaam. Going after things for gain. Willing to sell our souls to gain something. So what do we need to do? What we need to do is continue to strengthen our relationship with the Lord. Staying in his word. Reading the Bible, praying, coming to church. Those things are going to continue to develop and strengthen our relationship with God so that we will not find ourselves in a compromising position like this. That even if the position is offered to us, there's no way. There's no way that's going to happen because my relationship with the Lord, it cannot be penetrated. So Father, help us.